Hey everyone, and welcome to the Monetize Your Expertise podcast. I'm your host, Grant Weherley, the online course guy helping you every week to monetize your expertise. Just go to myepodcast.com for tools and links and more for all episodes. Hey podcast listeners, today you'll be hearing from the man himself, John Mcintyre, sometimes known as J-Mac, but more importantly known as the autoresponder guy. And actually more recently, branding himself to the e-commerce lifecycle guy or something like that. That's actually a main topic of what we talk about today, which is personal branding. We also talk about email marketing, John's story, but what's really interesting is how we dive into how John has done a great job of branding himself in the past and why you should brand yourself too, but also how he's going through the process of rebranding himself right now and how is he going about that process. So lots of great lessons learned. Stay tuned to hear more from J-Mac. Hey everybody, today I'm here with John Mcintyre, the autoresponder guy, founder of the McMethod. Thanks for joining me today, John.
Great to be here, Grant.
It's really interesting that we have sort of an overlap in experience because we actually both got started sort of doing the traveling entrepreneur thing through the same opportunity in the Philippines, which I think is awesome. I mean, John's come a long way since he was in the Philippines. So tell us a bit about what you're working on nowadays.
Nowadays, I basically have an email marketing agency. That's the easiest, fastest way to explain it that most people understand. What I'm doing is I'm currently in Colombia, Medellin, Colombia. I'm learning Spanish and figuring out how to talk to everyone here. I got here and realized that people speak less English here than they do in Thailand. It's ridiculous. So
Wow.
I've had to learn fast on the Spanish. As far as the business goes, I got started as a freelance copywriter, and now it's grown into a thing where clients come in and they ask, it's basically custom solutions. So some will take a sales funnel, some will take just some emails. And instead of writing it now, I'm doing the deals, finding the clients, and then I've got a team of writers that does all the work for me so I can sometimes sit back and relax and other times just work on more important things. So it's a good life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've built quite a reputation for yourself. I mean, you were calling yourself the autoresponder guy, and now like everybody knows you as the autoresponder email marketing guy. Your name comes up all the time in that industry. And so props to you for building a reputation there. I think it's quite a good one. And I know you've gotten some great results for people, and you've really planted some really effective seeds and have had people go on to like pull great numbers and do really awesome things based on your skills. So I think that's a good place to start, which is I'm really curious how you had that process to go from, at some point, knowing little to nothing about email marketing, about autoresponders, about any of it, about copywriting, nothing. How did you go from scratch to actually becoming the expert?
The funny thing about this is a lot of people don't get this until they've done it, until they've really experienced it. But that is that you're not really an expert until you have the balls to call yourself an expert. And what I mean by that is, like when I taught myself to write copy. I was in the Philippines and I wasn't making any money at all. Almost ran out of money actually when I was there. And then I started teaching myself to write copy, reading articles about it, finding out how to do it. And the way I did it was actually handwriting, going and getting old advertisements and handwriting them out myself, which was, spending an hour every day, and did it for a few months and just wrote copy every single day for an hour of old school advertisements that worked really well. Now, it worked really well, but where the expert thing came in, is I think there's actually a lot of great copywriters out there who are terrible at branding themselves as experts. And there's a lot of experts out there who are terrible about becoming an expert, like in the public eye. And what most people don't understand is you're not really an expert until you call yourself an expert. If you wait for everyone else to recognize you an expert, it's probably never going to happen, or you're just going to have to wait an extra 5 or 10 years, which for me is way too slow. You can literally, when I set up that site and started calling myself the autoresponder guy, I was not the most sought after email marketing guy at all. I had some clients coming to me I was living in Thailand. Most people that came to me for email, but I didn't have, it wasn't a big business or a bustling, huge agency or anything like that. It was just me. I just noticed I was doing some email stuff. And then I realized that I needed a USP. I needed a way to separate myself from all the other copywriters out there. So I was like, I'm going to be the email guy, the autoresponder guy. So I called myself that. And it wasn't until I started calling myself that other people started calling myself that. So that's what I mean. If you want to be an expert, you have to be the first. You're the first person who's going to call yourself an expert. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. But that's the easiest way to do it. You've got to have chops. You've got to have skills. But for the most part, you can be an expert anytime you decide to call yourself one.
I like it. So basically build skills and then a little bit of fake it till you make it.
Absolutely, 100%.
And I was actually talking to Leon a couple weeks ago, and he was actually telling me a story about a guy who I forget what he did, some kind of online marketing thing. And he would go and give these presentations at these big events. And then like at the end, he would basically give an offer to, I think it was like 100 grand a year. He only takes 10 clients or something like that, which is like $1 million for whatever he did, like online marketing or something, online marketing coaching once a month or something like that. And so like for a while, nobody would sign up with him, but he was branding himself as really, really, really high end just by the very fact that he was giving an offer like that. And so of course, like whenever you start calling yourself an expert, whenever you start, putting together high end offers, which I know you land to them all the time now. Like there's going to be some period where you're like kind of going out on a limb, putting yourself out there before anybody picks up on it. And so, yeah, I really like what you're saying about, you have to call yourself an expert first for other people to pick up on that. So what do you think was pivotal in your success in going from essentially a noob to an expert? Like, was there any kind of tipping point, or was it just sort of a gradual process along the way?
It was the point when I realized I had to have something. I had to stand for something. I couldn't be just another copywriter. I knew that if I wanted to, I had to basically have a USP, because that was where it started. I was just doing copy. I was just trying to be a copywriter and trying to make money and survive in Thailand. And what happened was I went through some marketing training. I was learning how to be a better marketing consultant. And one of the things that I was teaching you to do for clients was teach them how to, have to create a USP for them. And going through that, I was like, well, what the hell is my USP? I realized I didn't have one. I was just a copywriter at that stage, as far as like how the market knew me. And that was when I started going, all right, well, what can I be? It's like, all right, well, everyone comes to me for email. That's pretty much 90% of the clients that I get. It's always email marketing. So why don't I just call myself the email marketing guy? The thinking at the time was, I was thinking, everyone's going to, if you're at a conference with someone and they say, oh, I need some emails, I need a sales funnel or something like that, and a copywriter and you also know me, the email guy, the first person you're going to recommend is going to be me, even if the other guy's better than me, just because I'm the email guy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. And if you think about it, like very few people are going to ask for a copywriter. They're going to ask for, like a sales page, or they'll ask for an autoresponder series. So they'll ask for essentially what you branded yourself as. But so many people call themselves something like copywriter. But it takes an additional couple mental steps to think, okay, I need a sales page, I need a sales funnel, so I need a copywriter. Like, and most people are just going to think about what they need, not the title of copywriter, because it's not super, super relevant to what the actual service provided is. So that's really brilliant. And so what actually spurred that little light bulb for you?
Well, the marketing training, I was reading a thing, I was going through some training that's teaching you how to be like a marketing consultant. And the training, like I said, the training took you through like an 8-step process. Like, here's the process. You're going to go out there and get small business clients, and you're going to teach them how to basically market their business better. Or not just teach them, you're going to do it for them. And step 2 from memory was the USP. And so I was going through the videos thinking, all right, this is really cool. I'll be able to help people do this, and we'll all be fine and dandy. But that was when I went, well, what's my USP? That was that light bulb moment. Then I started doing some research, found out there was other people out there that called themselves the email guys. There's even another autoresponder guy out there, just no one knows who he is. And he was there before I was. And since me, there's been a lot of other people who've gone out there and called themselves something to do with email, like they've made themselves some sort of email copywriter, probably as a result of hearing stories like this. So that was really the light bulb moment, and that's where it all took off. Then that's when I created the podcast. I built my entire sort of brand around this idea of email. I started teaching people how to do email. It's one of those things where, like I said, like I might not have been this massive expert at the start, but what happened is I called myself the autoresponder guy and then started basically putting messaging out there into the world that I'm the email guy. It just took on a life of its own, because then people start seeing me and hearing about me. They're like, oh, I go on a podcast and they hear me say I'm the email guy, and then they start telling other people about me, and it just sort of picks up momentum. And like I said, it takes on a life of its own.
Nice. And so was the podcast that you launched pivotal in that process of branding yourself that way, or is it mostly just like calling yourself that when you go out in the world and on podcasts of other people?
All of the above. Like, it's everything. So like when you create like a USP or a positioning statement, you want that statement to be used everywhere. So on your website, in your emails, on your podcast if you have one. Like anytime you go to conferences, people say, what do you do? Well, I am XYZ. I've tried doing this. I've been working on doing this, because basically the autoresponder guy, here's another lesson that I actually learned about this recently. The idea of the autoresponder guy, the problem with it is that someone who's looking for an autoresponder is going to be one of the, not the worst clients, but one of the cheapest clients I can have. Because if someone's at the point where they know that they need an autoresponder and they know that they need emails, then they're going to most likely be fairly price sensitive. An autoresponder is not that big a thing. Whereas on the contrary, if people want more customers and I go and find those people and then sell them something, I can charge a lot more, because to them, an autoresponder, they don't even care what an autoresponder is. The fact that it's an autoresponder is completely irrelevant. What matters is that I'm getting them their results. If someone wants an autoresponder, that means they already know about email marketing, they already know about copyright, and they already know that email works. So I'm not adding that much value by just writing them some emails, because anyone can write emails. Whereas if I'm the guy who comes up with a solution to get them more customers, and I happen to use email marketing to do it, it's a lot better. So with that, the whole the autoresponder guy, I think it's been great, and I'm still running with it for now. But I don't use it as often when I get on calls with clients. They know me as the email guy. But what I'm trying to go after now, a couple of different directions. One thing I'm playing around with is the behavioral re-engagement consultant, which is based on the idea of you can use email to do a lot of real-time behavioral targeting and behavioral segmenting, and so that's a lot more based on the result. So we're not talking about the autoresponder anymore. We're talking about what's going on with the clients and the customers. So I'm saying, hey, look, you've got a database of 50,000 people, and you're not currently doing anything with it. What I can do is I can actually set up these basically an automated program that's going to literally re-engage people based on the behavior that they have with their website. And so you're spending, say, $50,000 a month on advertising right now. And what I can do is right now maybe you're making $200,000 from it, so you're profitable. The problem is, though, because you're not managing that database properly and you're not doing this behavioral retargeting with email marketing, you are literally leaving at least $100,000 of profit on the table. So put it this way, every single month you're losing $100,000 by not doing this. And so I don't have to mention an autoresponder there at all, but it's a much more valuable pitch. So that's one angle I'm playing with. And then the other one is this angle of... what would you call it? E-commerce email marketing. To go into an e-commerce store and say, look, they need to do email marketing. For an e-commerce store, they can add, say, 15 to 30% revenue just by setting up an email marketing program. And it's not as simple as just having an autoresponder. So it's not sufficient for me to call myself the autoresponder guy. What would be better in that situation, which I'm doing some testing right now, basically proving the concept first. But if this works, what I'll have to do is I'll probably publish a site or put a site out there, which is here's how to basically e-commerce email marketing guy, something like that. So then what happens is all these e-commerce guys, they're like, well, I need email marketing. And then they go, oh, do you know John? He's actually specializes in e-commerce email marketing. That's a lot more high potential, because e-commerce stores can be anywhere from $100,000 a year to several billion. Or several hundred billion if you're talking about Amazon. Amazon doesn't do much email either. So that's a lot more potential. It's a lot more clearer defined avatar. So the autoresponder guy's been great, but it has its own issues, it has its own problems. So just something to keep in mind when you're coming up with your own sort of positioning statement.
Nice. Well, it sounds like a rebrand might be in order. And when you do it, I think you should approach Amazon maybe as your first customer. I think that would be a good one.
I think so, man. I think one email for them might make them $300 million, that would be a cool testimony to have.
Just get 1% commission and you're good to go for life.
Exactly.
So I'm curious about your first suggestion there. What was it? Behavioral re-engagement specialist? Is that what you said?
Yep.
So I'm curious about where that comes from in terms of how you picked that title, because I'm just trying to think through the logic of creating a kind of title for yourself. Because when it comes to the autoresponder guy, I absolutely see the challenges that you indicated about the type of client it attracts, and also not really resonating with the types of people that you would want as clients. But then it's interesting that that's a proposed rebrand, because I would also think that that title, it has the sort of ambiguity that gives it value, because it sounds complicated and valuable. So it'd probably allow you to charge more if you called yourself that versus the autoresponder guy. But the flip side is it also doesn't, at least I wouldn't think, it wouldn't immediately sort of tell you what kind of value you would bring. So your pitch was awesome. And if you gave that to anybody, I'm sure it would work really well. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on terms of when you say the autoresponder guy, it's maybe lower value, but it's very, very clear versus behavioral re-engagement specialist is like very, very high value, but kind of ambiguous. So how do you weigh those kinds of pros and cons when you pick that kind of positioning?
Well, you basically have to become a better salesman. When I say I'm an autoresponder guy, someone gets it straight away. There's no explanation needed. They're like, well, I either need one or I don't. And if they don't, well, there's no reason to talk to me any further. The problem is they might actually need one. They just don't think they do. Right? So if I go to a conference and I meet someone, they're like, so what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a behavioral re-engagement consultant. They're like, what? What's that? I'm like, all right, so here's what I do. I help small businesses that have large databases, large databases, or they sell large ticket products, automatically re-engage those customers and make 2, 3, 4, 5 times as much from their advertising spend without spending any more on advertising. Okay, and I do it without them having to do a single thing. Now, we take care of the whole thing from front to end. It's a total done-for-you service, and that's how it works. So what happens is when I say I'm the autoresponder guy, I don't get to do a pitch. They're just like, all right, cool. Whereas if I go, I'm a behavioral re-engagement consultant, I get to tell them who I help, what I do for them, and say deal with one of the objections, like even if they don't believe it's possible, for example. And so that though, the challenge with that is that requires more finesse. You have to be a better salesperson. Okay. Whereas the autoresponder, like people would come to me, I can get on the phone with Bill and selling them autoresponders, and it was great practice. But selling an autoresponder is pretty easy to someone who's coming looking for an autoresponder. It's not, as long as the price is fine. You don't really need to sell it that well. They just want emails. As long as I'm cool on the phone, it's a really easy sell. Whereas trying to sell a sort of a complex custom package of behavioral re-engagement, for example, that's a lot different. Because it's a bit like they're not getting a clear thing. And they're not looking at, like, selling like 10 emails for $100 an email, for example. That's really easy because it's like, all right, $100 an email, that's done. Whereas selling a system where you don't tell them how many emails they're going to get, because it's to be honest, it's completely irrelevant. The amount of emails they get is irrelevant. If they're asking about how many emails I get, it's already the wrong question. They're a low value prospects for the most part, for a copywriter. And so part of this is the challenge is going to depend on it's going to depend on what sort of target, like, clients you're going to go after, and also your basically balls or willingness to learn how to do this if you can't do it right now. But as for you asked me how I came up with it, right? How to come up with stuff like that.
Yeah, how do you come up with it? And you mentioned also testing between the two different ideas you have. So how do you come up with it? How do you test it?
Well, it's proving concept. Like, for example, with this e-commerce stuff that I'm doing, the goal is to basically practice not practice, but basically get a few clients and see how it goes, see if it works. And if it works really well, then it's like, all right, this is a market. This is going to work. The behavioral re-engagement thing, I haven't pursued that heavily just because it doesn't have a clear target. I could define like, I want a small business with lots of leads and a large ticket value. So I found it really hard to figure out who I was going after. So it wasn't the best pit. So it wasn't the best thing. Because a couple of things in business is you want to be able to be crystal clear on who your target is. And if you can't be, you need to work on that or you need to change. So behavioral re-engagement, who's that for? Like that could be for a real estate agent. But real estate agents, a lot of them are very cheap, so they're not going to spend a couple of $1,000s a month on it. It's sort of hard to equate the value as well because it's going to vary from business to business. It's going to be custom because they're not all the same. Unless it's real estate. The challenge with real estate is just not going to make, I don't see a clear path to generating, say, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars for them unless they're a big agency. However, with e-commerce, it's crystal clear. It's like, look, if you're doing $2 million revenue and you're not doing any email marketing right now, or whatever you're doing very little and it's very poorly done, which is most companies, you're looking at $300,000 minimum revenue if you set this campaign up. And that's going to be true of every single e-commerce company, right? Every single store that I talk to. So what's more too is as far as like going and identifying these stores, all I have to do is just go use software to scan the web and find everyone who uses Shopify or everyone who uses Magento. They're really easy people to find. It's relatively easy to estimate their revenue because we can just look at traffic scores on the internet. It's relatively easy to find. I can find people who own these stores. I can just email them directly. They're going to be on Twitter and they're going to be on LinkedIn. So they're really easy to contact. And it's a really easy sell. Like it's a total no-brainer offer. So what you want is you want someone who you can clearly identify, and also who you can make a total no-brainer offer to. And 10 emails for $100 an email for $1,000, for example, that's great for somebody who wants an email, but that's not really a no-brainer offer. Somebody either wants it or they don't. If they want emails, great, they're going to do it. If they don't, it's not really a no-brainer offer. Whereas if I go up to any e-commerce store owner and say, hey, how would you like to increase your revenue by 15 to 30%? And let's say they're doing $2 million a year, so it's a minimum $300,000 increased revenue on the upside. 30% margin gives them, say, a $90,000 or gross profit increase just by setting up this campaign. So, all right, so you're looking at, on the low end, a minimum $90,000 increase in the business. Profit, pure profit to the bottom line with nothing extra spent on advertising. And here's the thing. I can set this entire system up for you for only $10,000. Plus, there's a $1,500 a month retainer fee, and we'll manage it, we'll split test it, and we'll improve it. So we'll take you from that 15% to the 30%. So you go from $300,000 to $600,000 revenue extra and $90,000 to $180,000 extra. And so when you put it like that, and then you go, all right, so what's the payback period? If we're talking the system setup is you're looking at $90,000 profit, $300,000 revenue, and I'm going to charge you $10,000 to set this up, you're going to pay this off in the very first month. In fact, you're going to pay this off in probably the very first week of that month. So doesn't that sound like a good deal?
That's a pretty effective pitch. You're making me want to like start an e-commerce store just so I can hire you. Not bad. So it sounds like you've really refined not only your pitch, but also your methods in terms of your core competencies here. And so I'm curious if you have any habits around continuing to self-educate to get better and better at what you're doing, because you've clearly done a really fantastic job of becoming that, not only just calling yourself an expert, but truly being an expert.
So do I have any tips on what? On specific?
So do you have any habits built around continuing to learn and educate yourself and get better at your craft?
Well, I mean, part of it is always like keeping your eye on the goal. I think the most important thing that a lot of people forget about is it's not about the books you read, for example. It's not about like all these nitty-gritty in the trenches things. Like what you do each day you shouldn't even look at that first. The first thing you should look at is what's your outcome? What's the goal that you're trying to achieve? For example, like if the business is, I want to build $1 million business, and every single day you need to look at that goal and think, how is what I'm doing today moving me towards that? And then so you'll naturally take the steps that are going to move you towards that goal. Whether it happens to be reading a book, whether it happens to be improving the sales process or going after. For example, for 2 years, I haven't done recurring revenue. I think this is honestly one of the biggest mistakes I've made in the last 2 years. Biggest business mistakes is not figuring out this recurring revenue thing. Because as a result, every single month, on the first of every month, I start at $0, right? Which is fine if you enjoy selling and you want to work all the time. Not all the time, but you just want to keep working. But what I want, the whole reason I got into this originally was so I could have more control over my lifestyle. I have a great life. I travel around and it's a lot of flexibility. However, I can't take a month off. I can't really take more than a week off, to be honest, without checking email and making sure nothing bad has happened. And that's my fault, right? It's because I haven't been doing recurring revenue. Whereas instead, if I was more focused on 2 years ago, I had someone point out to me and say, John, look, if you really want to be able to take a month off, because this is literally what happened 6 months ago. They said, like, look, if you really want to be able to go off snowboarding and Whistler for 3 months and not really work, you need to get recurring revenue. Otherwise, you always have to sell. But there's just no way around it. And here's the other thing. If you're doing project-based work, I make a sale and I learn all about that client's business in the first month to do the job. And then I say goodbye and we never do any work together again most of the time, right? So whereas recurring, you do the same thing. You make the sale. You learn all about their business in the first month and you do some work for them in the first month. But then instead of ending it then, they pay you again in month 2, and month 3, and month 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And so all the work with recurring clients is pretty much up front. As long as you're generating, in this case, it's as long as you're generating ROI for them, they're going to keep paying you. So if I go and run a sale for, run a campaign for someone, and I'm charging them $5,000 a month, and I run a campaign for them, and we make them $100,000 in that first month, $100,000 profit, for example, that they didn't have if they didn't hire me, that would then mean if I'm charging them $5,000 a month, they've got 20 months now before they start losing money on me. So I've got another 20 months basically before I have to start making them money again. And so there's this. So to return that back to one of the most important things is focusing on the outcome. If I was more focused on that outcome, I want to be able to basically check in and check out and basically go off for a month, or maybe check emails once a week. And if I really believed that, because I don't think I ever really thought that was possible, I didn't push myself to figure out what that would actually look like. Now I can see the clear path. I've gone through some mental shifts. But now it's like, all right, if you want that, if I focused on that 2 years ago, I would have gone, all right, well, I need to do recurring revenue. I also need to outsource. I also need to charge more. I also need to charge 5-10 times as much so I can afford to hire the people and I can afford to market to those people. And so what happens is when I'm focused on that outcome, just all of a sudden I realized that, I can't charge $1,000 for 10 emails because that means I'm going to be a freelance copywriter. With that, I can't really afford to hire anyone that's decent. That's why I need to charge for, say, 5, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. And so when you charge more, you're able to hire better people. You're able to go and you're able to spend more on marketing to find people who wouldn't get your help like if you didn't. So you're able to offer more value to the marketplace, which is why you can charge more. You get the benefit of basically, because you're off the recurring, you can now take more time off because you've got staff managing the thing and doing everything for you. And now you have a business that you can sell, right? So it's better in every way. But those actions of like charging more, doing recurring, hiring staff, all those things, I won't realize that, like I won't discover that I should be doing that. I won't even think to do those things unless I'm focused on the goal, which is, say, build a business that allows me to take 2-3 months off at a time and go snowboarding. So the most important thing you can do is not so much focus on what should you do now, because what I can say, what I'm doing or what I might do is going to be different from what you're doing because you're going to have a different outcome, and so is everyone else. So the most important thing is to be outcome focused and then to think what would have to happen to make the outcome you want a reality.
Very, very deep. And I actually wanted to talk about not only, so we're kind of going down the path of client work right now, which is definitely a topic I wanted to talk to you about. But I also want to talk to you about email marketing. But let's go and going down this rabbit hole of client work, because this is really, really valuable. And I know it's something that's really important in your business. I know you've also got a membership site, but your core business is very much, like as you said, dependent and revolves around client work. And so I'm curious to dig into that a little bit to find out, for example, you said you're continually getting new clients and you're trying to go high end with them, and you talked about helping all these different organizations and businesses pull really, really impressive numbers. So first question is, you mentioned first of all that you wanted to start getting recurring revenue, but you haven't yet. So I'm curious what has stopped you from doing that. I mean, obviously there's the mental goal of not having that goal, but also was it just a packaging thing? Is it a different kind of offer? What really stopped you from going there?
What really stopped me was just beliefs around it. Like I thought, if I got recurring revenue, then I'd never be able to take time off because clients would always be calling me. When really I could have just hired like a project manager to do all that. So a lot of it was just probably immaturity in terms of what I understood about business and how you could sort of structure things. And no one really I think people did point it out to me, but I wasn't really ready for it at the time. Well, you have that thing. Someone pointed this out to me recently in the last about 6 months ago, and that's when it clicked. And people have told me this stuff before in the past, but there's that element of, there's those sayings of the teacher appears when the student's ready. There's aspects of that. I've had stuff from coaches and mentors who've told me stuff, and at the time I was like, I don't really get it. I'm not going to do that. It just doesn't really make sense to me. And then a year later, I'm like, that's what they meant. I get it now. Damn. And so, I just thought, the biggest thing with me was I don't want to do recurring because number one, I just didn't think I thought it would mean I'd have to be working all the time. Number two, it was hard because I just didn't know how to do it. And so for whatever reason, I don't know, I just didn't push it. I don't really know why. Whether it was a mental barrier or what. Maybe I was just comfortable doing what I was doing. And I didn't really see the true benefit. So I didn't get excited enough about it to push forward. It was like, it would be nice to have that maybe. But it's really not, to be honest, it's really not, a major thing for me. So I didn't put any effort into it. And I wish I did. Like I said, I reckon it's one of the biggest mistakes I made. Like if I got started with recurring revenue, say 2 years ago, today I would be in a completely different place.
Well, don't feel too bad about it. You're still in a pretty damn good place. So, and then going to the next step, how do you actually get your clients? So, especially when you're in that place of having to get new clients every month, then that must mean you have some kind of refined process of getting clients, right?
It's all inbound, man. I have the podcast, so it's pretty much all via that. The podcast, the website, I have a lot of blog posts out there. So I get a decent amount of traffic each month of people coming to my site looking for email marketing help. Some of them want to buy products for it and do it themselves, and some of them want to hire someone. So I sell some products to the people that want to do it themselves, and I sell packages to the people that want to hire someone.
Good stuff. So it sounds like just branding and getting your stuff out there, getting that title out there of autoresponder guy, or maybe soon to be behavioral re-engagement specialist, and then just fielding leads as they come in. That's good stuff. So what kinds of things do you typically, or what kinds of offers do you typically have for your clients, and specifically in terms of like a value ladder and a sales funnel? What are some of the really high end offers that you have for people?
That's a great question. Give me an example. Right now, we're doing a deal with an e-commerce guy where it's starting. He's got about a $2 or $3 million store, and we're running a promotion for him to start off with. There's a test run. If that goes well, I'm pretty confident it will. We'll get him onto the monthly program. So that's an example. So charge something, charge a couple $1,000s up front to do the promotion, and then after that, there'll be a monthly program where he'll sign up and pay per month to get the full implementation done. Or another company, we did a thing where they were looking to get into paid traffic. So all right, we'll set up a funnel and we'll test the whole thing on an ongoing basis. I mean, that was pretty much it. Set up some emails, set up 3 or 4 step funnel, and then just test it. It's really basic stuff. The catch is that some people will pay $2,000 for it, some people will pay $25,000 for it. And the difference between them is that, number one, you've got to be able to ask for the 20 grand in the first place. And number two, they've got to be able to support it with the revenue. So someone who's not making much money is not going to spend, someone who's making $5,000 a month, is not going to spend $10,000 to set up a funnel. They just don't have the budget for it. They don't really see it. They're just not going to do it. So if you find someone for $100,000 a month, they'd happily spend $10,000.
Yeah, I think you just hit on a really important concept, a really important fallacy that I think a lot of people have, because it's natural to assume that if you're charging to set up a funnel for one business, something that's 1% of what you could charge to set up the exact same funnel for a different type of business. Because I think if in our heads, we oftentimes think about how pricing is related to what you're doing, right? Like the number of hours that you might spend, or like the amount that you're paying your staff, or what have you. But really, it's more about the ROI for the business. So if the business is doing really, really well, and you set up a sales funnel that doubles a $200,000 per month revenue stream versus a $2,000 per month revenue stream, then that's where the value comes in. That's where the pricing comes in. So I think that's a really important concept that you hit on, and hopefully people listening are in that point where it's the teacher appears because the student's ready to hear it. But because I think that's one of those things that I've probably heard a million times before, but I've only recently, over the past 3 months or so, really internalized that concept. But it's a really important one. And so what would you recommend to people who want to get started landing those bigger clients? Is it just pursuing the right people? Is it developing sales skills? What has been key for you?
Well, first, you've just got to be clear on who you want to work with, what your value is that you offer. Sort of part of it's what are you offering? What are you selling? And then who can pay the most for that? But you can be a copywriter, and you can be a copywriter for people who are going to pay you $20 an email, or people who are going to pay you $10,000 for a sequence. It's your choice. But the trick is you got to be able to identify who the person is that you want to go after, and then what sort of business they have, so where the value is. It's basically like charging more in this sort of situation. It's very little about what you actually sell. It's almost entirely about who you're selling it to. You just go back to that idea. If they have a $10 million business, they're going to spend a hell of a lot more than someone who's got a $1 million business, even if your product is amazing. You have the best product in the world. If they can't afford it, well, they're not going to spend it. If they don't have the money to spend. So the biggest thing is if you want to charge more or make more money with clients, go after bigger clients. And as far as going and getting them, you've got to be clear about who they are. When I did the behavioral re-engagement thing, the problem with that is it was very tough to define a clear market for that. A clear avatar. I could do the real estate thing, but I spoke to a few real estate people and they were like, this is not going to work. It's not a no-brainer offer to set up an email funnel for them. It's not proven. Lead gen for real estate agents, on the other hand, that's got good potential. But then the leads, because it's a very competitive market, there's a whole bunch of reasons why it didn't go down that direction as well. So what I'm been looking for lately is how can you take what you're doing and make it an absolute no-brainer offer? So if you presented that to someone, it's what they would be crazy not to do it. And that's hard. That's a really hard thing to do. But that's really where the money is. So if I go that's why I use that example. If I go to an e-commerce guy and say, hey, look, I'll give you $300,000 extra a year. I'm just going to charge you $10,000 for it. The guy's like, what? And that's basically the increase in revenue for the cost of the program. He's going to be like, why wouldn't I do that? Now, as long as he thinks I'm a nice guy and I'm trustworthy and that sort of thing, those things have to be met. But that's relatively easy. You get on the phone and you just be cool. And you have the confidence to say, well, it's $10,000, and you're going to be willing to explain that here's the pay. You have to educate the client Like if I don't tell the client that he's looking at 15 to 30% increase in revenue, which is going to be $300,000 on the low end, if I don't tell him that, he's probably not going to figure it out himself. So it's my responsibility to educate the client on the benefit of this. Because some people, they should buy your stuff, but they're not going to because they don't know enough. And it's your responsibility to educate them on that. But the trick is really coming up with those no-brainer offers. Like who can you talk to, who based on your skill set, who can you talk to where you can make an absolute no-brainer offer?
Really, really key point. I really like that. And so you're saying that what you sell doesn't really matter. It's about who you sell it to. But that also begs the question to kind of hone into that last part there. Does how you sell it change based on who you're selling it to? Like, for example, obviously the no-brainer offer, that structuring your offers that way, that's really, really compelling, and that'd probably work at any price point. But I'm curious if you are, you're going low end, you're a copywriter, for example, you're just getting started, and how you land those kinds of clients versus how you actually land the kinds of clients that are making 300K based on your campaigns and giving you 10K. Is the process the same, or does that vary as well?
To a point, yes, but then on the other hand, no. Like if you're selling an autoresponder, you can just talk about emails. Whereas if you want to sell stuff for $10,000, you can't talk about emails. You got to talk about the ROI. So, but by the same token, if you talked about ROI to someone just looking for an autoresponder, you'd be able to charge them more. So, like if you talk about the features of the nitty gritty of what you're offering, like, I'm going to give you 10 emails and there's going to be a landing page, and that's what you may have to tell higher ticket clients that anyway because they want to know just as far as like what deliverables are. But the emphasis shouldn't be on that when you charge more. The emphasis on the ROI. That's what matters. It doesn't matter what you do to get it. They like in most business, basically the bigger they are as well, the more money they have, the less they even want to know how you do it. They just want to like know what the result is. They want to be able to trust you that you can handle it. That's really what they're looking for. So if you go into them, you tell them about all the emails you're going to write, or all the say even if you're selling websites, if you go out there and tell people, well, I'll give you 5 pages, it'll be built on WordPress, it'll have these plugins and a contact form, you can sell that for maximum like a couple $1,000s. If you go in there and you tell them, look, I'm going to build you an engine. Basically, it's going to be a website, but it's going to be a sales engine, an automatic sales machine that when people find it, it's going to be designed. It's not about 5 pages there, so having a contact form here. This website is going to be designed and optimized specifically to get you as many leads as possible. So we're going to use everything that we know about psychology and behavior and marketing and copywriting, everything that we know about all that stuff, to create you a website. Most companies just have websites. They're basically like a business card that's online. It's a terrible way to use a website. What you want to do is you want to use a website. It's a way for you to get more or less leads. Would you rather less leads with the business card approach or more leads? They get more leads. I go, great. Well, we're going to set you up a website that's going to do that. It's not going to be a typical website. It's going to be different because of this, and this. And so you see how when you focus on more on the benefits, you can say it's a different sell. And therefore you can sell it from that website. Then you can be like, all right, well, now what we're looking at is the search traffic of, say, 1,000 people per month. Now, we believe we can get you into the top number 1 spot within 3 months. The top number 1 spot will get you 30% of the traffic, which is 300 visits a month. 300 visits a month will get you, let's say, 15 leads. If your current close rate is 25%, you're looking at 3 sales there, 4 sales there. 4 sales, and your average customer value is, say, $5,000. You just made $20,000, and that's in 1 month, right? So this is going to happen every single month once your system's set up. A year, that's $240,000. Now the system, the website, basically, it's not really just a website, though. It's an entire system conversion package. It's going to be $40,000. Now, here's the catch, right? Here's the interesting thing. That could be the same thing. That could be relatively the same website as a lot of the business card websites. It'll obviously be different based on because it's a different outcome. But it'll be very similar. It'll still just be a website. We just structure it a little bit differently. We're not selling the amount of pages on the website or that sort of stuff. We're selling the benefits. And we can sell it for 10 times as much, 20 times as much, 50 times as much. And it requires us maybe the same amount of work.
I like it. Actually, it makes me think of if you go up to that e-commerce store and you say, hey, I'm going to write you 10 emails. It could be 10 grand. They're going to be like, screw you, go away, stop wasting my time. But if you say, I'm going to generate $300,000 for your business, give me 10 grand. Well, that's a much better offer, even though it's like pretty much the same number of words. So yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. Lots of good stuff that you have there for working with high-end clients in terms of positioning yourself, in terms of approaching the right people and selling them the right way by focusing on the benefits, not the features. And also, I'm also happy that you shared your sort of lesson learned and also biggest mistake, which is always really interesting to hear from established entrepreneurs. Like, what's their biggest thing that they would change? Which for you said is not focusing on recurring revenue. So hopefully people are learning from that. But now I want to get into specific tips about email marketing. You're the autoresponder / email marketing / whatever other titles you're developing in the works right now. So let's get into some tips you might have for some listeners today about how they can improve their email marketing. Sound good?
Sounds good, man.
So what do you think are some common mistakes that people make with their copywriting, with their autoresponder series, or if they even have an autoresponder series or their email marketing? Common mistakes.
I mean, the biggest mistake is not doing it in the first place. The second biggest mistake is thinking that it's going to completely transform your business. And most of the time it's not. It's email's a multiplier. So if you look at businesses, you've got traffic coming in, you've got your conversion process, and you've got your economics. So traffic is people coming in to find your business. Conversion is what you do to convert them into a customer, and economics is how much money you make from them. Now, email, for the most part, usually falls under the conversion side of it. So if you have a small business and you're making $1,000 a month, and you're not doing any email marketing, and you do email marketing, you might make an extra couple $100 a month. It's like a big deal, right? It's great, but it's not really that. It's not going to totally explode your business or anything like that. On the contrary, if you're doing $10 million a year, you're not doing any email marketing, and we're looking at, all right, well, now instead of 30% is $3 million. That's a lot of money extra. So that's one thing and so this is where it gets interesting. So when you learn more about pitching, then you start applying the same stuff to your own business. Email marketing, it's not going to transform your business, but it's a multiplier. So it's going to take whatever you have and multiply it by a certain amount and going to give you more money and more revenue. That's worth understanding. Don't get into it with sort of like a pie in the sky. I think it's going to totally change your life, because it's not. Number three, a third mistake is probably just not doing it enough. Now, I know a lot of people who, the typical business would be like, they'd mail their database once every few months, if at all. Most businesses don't even do it. Right, so that's mistake number one. The ones that do it every few months. It's ridiculous. Some of these are like, they'll be sitting on hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, and they'll do it once every few months. It's crazy. So what you want to do is you want to do it regularly. You want to do it every week, every fortnight at the very least. But I would go every week. Personally, I go multiple times a week with the way I set things up. And the mistake number four is don't do a straight autoresponder. Like that, when it's great to get started with, 5, 10 emails when someone signs up. But you want to look at email as a way to increase conversion at each step in the funnel. So with my site, for example, right now, you sign up, you're going to get a bunch of emails when you first sign up. Okay, that's your initial autoresponder. Now, if you put your hand up and you say, look, I'd prefer to hire someone to write me emails, maybe you. If you click a link and sort of basically segment yourself that way, I'll then put you on a custom campaign for those people. So another campaign that's specifically designed to get you on the phone with me so we can talk about doing a project together. Okay? Then I've got, if you visit the sales page and you don't buy, well, then I'm going to send you an email and say, hey, look, you visited the sales page, but you didn't buy. What's going on? So I've got a campaign for that. So the idea here is that don't just set up one campaign and be like, all right, I'm done. That's email marketing done. You want to have like an ongoing, not just an ongoing thing, but you want to look at all the different leverage points. So for an e-commerce store, you've got your pre-purchase sign-up, where they sign up for a 5% coupon and they haven't bought anything yet. You've got post-purchase, which is after they buy, what happens then? You've got post-purchase repeat customers and post-purchase first customers, people who bought once, people who bought in the past, people who haven't. You've got to treat them differently. So they should have a separate campaign each. You've got cart abandonment. Then you've got custom campaigns. You could take your top 5 products and create a custom campaign for them. And if anyone ever visits those 5 pages, you should have a custom email campaign designed to sell them on that product. You could do this for a high-ticket product. So if you have like a $1,500 product on your store, you could have a campaign where you set up your software. So if someone just visits that page and doesn't buy, you can then automatically put them on a campaign that says, hey, look, we noticed you visited this page and we probably have a few concerns. I know it's a $1,500 product, so we thought we'd send you an email and just fill you in on some of the issues, some of the questions you might have. Right? You're going to pick up people that way. Then you've got your ongoing newsletters. With the store, you're going to want to be doing it on an ongoing basis. So there's all these different things. The way to look at emails is that they have that holistic perspective, not that let's just set up one campaign. You want to take advantage of every single little hole, because really you've got a bucket right now. And if you're not doing email, you've got a big hole in there, or just tons and tons of holes in that bucket, and you're leaking money. Now, what you can do with email is you can plug one of those holes and just set up one autoresponder, or you can plug all of them and set up all these different campaigns which are designed to plug every single hole in that bucket. So instead of losing money, you're now making more money than ever.
So you just talked about a lot of really effective and advanced strategies about different kinds of segmented campaigns. So just to quickly recap for anybody who's listening and who's not familiar with segmentation. So he's talking about actually sending different email campaigns based on people's actions, whether they go to a different link, whether they interact with an email series in a particular way. So that's really interesting. And I'm curious, and again, this is kind of more advanced email marketing, but I'm curious what your favorite tools are for creating that kind of segmentation.
The tool I use right now is Drip. It's at getdrip.com. It's done by Rob Walling. Good piece of software, man. It's $50 a month. It can do a lot of stuff I'm talking about. If you want to do, there's all sorts of different softwares. They all do the same thing. Well, they all do similar things, and they do. Drip I think is better than Mailchimp. Mailchimp has these features, but it doesn't have them in. It can't do as much as Drip can. Infusionsoft is more expensive, $300 a month. It's more of a CRM and a sales tool than just an email marketing software. Problem is, despite how amazing it is, as everyone tells me, you can't do some stuff is really hard to do. With Drip, if I want to have a campaign where I say, if someone visits my about page, send them this email, it takes me like 2 minutes to set up. On Infusionsoft, you either can't do it or there's some huge complex bunch of rules that you've got to use. I couldn't believe it when someone told me this. It was like, what? That's just absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe that it's that hard for such an expensive piece of software. So I would go with Drip. Yeah, that's the tool I would use. It makes things very simple.
Nice. And you use, I think it was Aweber, right? Is that correct?
I used to use Aweber. Yeah, Aweber's I don't know. Aweber's just terrible, to be honest. Like, don't do all the basic things. If all you want is just an autoresponder, go with Aweber. If you want to do anything more advanced, which is a lot of what I'm talking about here, and you should be doing, you need something way better than Aweber.
Okay, good stuff. So what are some other business tools or email marketing tools or anything along those lines that you found really integral in sort of taking your business to the next level?
Well, you've got, I don't use that many tools, man. I use a lot of Evernote. A lot of people know. Evernote's, I love Evernote. What else? Evernote, Drip. I outsource my email, so I can't really say email anymore. I mean, that's really business. I don't use a whole lot of tools. I use Asana for task management, for delegating stuff to the team.
I just set that up today. I really love it. Literally just started using that today. I'd heard good things, and I can second that one, even just after the first day of using it.
Yeah, it's a great piece of software. It's really cool. Goes really, really well. So, I mean, that's really it. I use Skype all the time. Skype, email, Asana, and Evernote. I mean, that's really the most of it.
Simplicity. I like it.
Yeah.
So, for example, if people fall into the category of they haven't really effectively used email marketing or autoresponders at all in their business, what do you typically recommend to people to first initially have some kind of setup there? Is there a particular kind of campaign that's sort of the generic recommendation that you give, or what does that look like?
Well, I would start with the autoresponder. Start with creating an autoresponder that you send out to people who sign up. Like, just go through, I would sit down and make a list of all the different holes in the bucket, leverage points you might call them, and then create a campaign for each of those leverage points.
And so some of those leverage points are what? What would you recommend is the most important ones to fill first? Well,
you've got your prospects. Some people visit your site. What are you doing with them there? Are you, putting them onto some sort of campaign? You've got people who've bought products from you in the past. You should have a different campaign for each product used for the most part. You need to have cart abandonment is a good one. So if someone adds a product to their cart or gets to your payment page and doesn't buy, send them an email there and say why didn't you buy? It's going to vary for every business. Just look at all the different parts where people might drop off, where you might be able to add some email in, and you can split people up into segments. So with mine, I've got a thing where if you sign up to my list, you'll see on the next page, I say, do you want to write your own emails or do you want to hire someone to write them for you? And so if you click, depending on which one you click, you go into a different campaign. So it's how can you segment up your database into different people? I mean, and then you can set up different campaigns like that. That's another thing you can. And
so what strategy do you typically, so for example, the core campaign of just generally people coming to your sites, you're diving into a new business and they have no autoresponder series at all. They have some kind of opt-in, but it's just collecting leads. There's nothing after that. So what do you, I mean, obviously, okay, it's kind of a weird question because it'll vary dramatically based on the industry and the business model. But generally, what kind of process do you try and lead people through in your campaigns to get them from prospect to buyer?
Well, that's a good question. It's actually not too difficult to answer. The email one's always like welcome them to the family. So like, hey, what's up? Here's what you can expect from these emails. Here's what's going to happen. Welcome to the family. Make sure you don't, like, these don't go to spam. You can see an example of this just by signing up on my site. It's the best way just to get a sort of see what I'm talking about.
To speak to that note real quick is that, I actually did that. I think it was the last time we chatted. Just 'cause I was curious how your setup worked. And then I was actually going through your funnel and I was like, dang, this is like a perfect implementation of like the theory of email marketing that I'm familiar with. But like, yours is actually, I mean, it's your reputation, so you got to uphold it. But you do a really good job of like really effectively implementing like everything you're talking about, the segmentation, all of the like, I was like recognizing the email marketing strategies, but they were still really damn effective. And so actually, like since I did that, I've actually recommended like I think half a dozen other people go to your site and opt in because it's such a good example of effective email marketing. So everybody go. It's the MC method, right?
Yeah.
themcmethod.com. Really great email marketing. And also you can opt into different places and it sends you different campaigns. It's really good stuff. So anyway, sorry to continue.
Yeah, so email 2 is did you get my email? And that's where it just says, hey, did you get my email? The reason with those things is I'm trying to get them to reply to email 1 and email 2. And if they do, it gives me positive scores with Gmail and Yahoo and all those senders. And then I'm more likely to skip the promotions tab, skip the social tab, and go straight to the inbox. Email 3 is usually a quick tip, just sort of set the stage and be like, I know my shit. Here's something really cool that you can do straight away and get some results. Email 4 and 5 usually do a story about who I am or who the client is to sort of set the stage and explain who they are. The next one, and then after that, it just depends on the client. After that, it sort of, it varies all the time. It really depends on the client. Sort of, usually content and weaving pitches into it or working our way up to a pitch.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Switching gears here. So I've just kind of like observed the way you've kind of run your business, and it seems like you're a very well networked person. I don't know if that's just the fact that you run a podcast or you just have some really damn good testimonials. But I'm curious about like, is that a true statement? Are you a well networked person? And if so, what are your? It sounds kind of weird and self-serving to call it networking strategies, right? It's relationships, but I'm just kind of curious about how you approach that in your business in terms of networking, relationship building, and how that's helped grow in your business.
Well, that's a good question. What do you mean by like? Why does it seem like specifically? Why does it seem like I'm very well networked? Or have a good network?
I suppose it's just if for example, even if you just go to your website, like the people that you're coordinated with in some way, whether it's on your podcast episodes or past clients or just all kinds of different things. I've just noticed that you're hooked up with some pretty big names. I mean, I don't know if that's just a result of you getting great results for people or, your podcast is well established to let you sort of seek out really, really high-end entrepreneurs in some cases. And so, yeah, I'm just curious what your process was there, or if it was just sort of happenstance, organic growth.
It just sort of happened. I mean, for the most part, yeah. I mean, the podcast has helped. Part of it is like just being. I think a big part of networking is just being cool. Like I don't ask a lot of people for stuff. Like it's just not my. I don't like to ask people for stuff. I like my thing is like just be cool. Like don't just be a friend. Just be like a normal person, have fun and joke around. And like when I'd get on the podcast and do things with people, like I'd never kiss their ass and act like they're bigger than me. It's like dating. Like you can't act like the person that you're with is better than you, or they think they are. I don't know, just getting around and chatting to people and keeping in touch. And the autoresponder guy thing helps. I think a lot of people, part of probably what's helped in some ways is a lot of people knew me when I was just getting started, so they've been able to sort of see the change and the shift. And I think that's probably. Everyone likes to see those sort of things, and then it's a very easy message to pass on.
So just be cool, bro. I think that's a good summary of your strategy. Just be cool.
I mean, pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
Nice. I mean, you seem like a really, really laid back dude. Actually, here's another random question. Do you know your Myers-Briggs, your personality type?
Yeah, I did that. I've done it a few times, and I usually get ENTP.
Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
What's yours?
I kind of wish I would have thought about it. I wonder if I would have guessed that. I don't think I would have, because my understanding is that ENTP people tend to be a little bit more like fiery and inconsistent or something. Like I remember hearing Steve Jobs was ENTP or something like that, but maybe that's just my misguided perception there, but
it's interesting you say that because everyone has this impression of me that I'm this chilled out, laid back guy, and I guess in some ways I am. But me and Rob Hanley, I think you know Rob, right?
yeah.
So me and Rob laugh about this because, like, in Australia, I would come across as very intense, very like
Really?
just like I'm not laid back in Australia for the most part, like compared to the typical Australian. So part of it is like for an Australian, I'm not that laid back, and I come across very laid back, like on the podcast and on things like this. But if you saw me like day to day, like 24 hours a day, you like, and we're all like this, right? Like what the world sees and what we see is, often very different. I'm erratic. Like I'm super erratic. No, I'm not super erratic. I get stuff done and I stick with the business, and I'm careful not to jump around too much. But I'm like, I have the same problems with like jumping from opportunity to opportunity, or hearing about something really cool and getting super, super excited about it for 3 weeks. And then 3 weeks later being like, I just losing interest in it. Like you as people who know me well, I'm like that. I do that a ton. So yeah, it's this interesting thing where on the outside it can look like super laid back and like that. And maybe I'm laid back and I'm relaxed, generally speaking. But I do have that streak of inconsistency and being up and down and being sort of a little bit erratic, and I can get very, very excited at certain times about certain things. And so yeah.
I think that just might be the sort of entrepreneurial ADD, manic depressive kind of like that just kind of goes along with the territory almost. Like it's a pretty common thing, but I don't know. I vote for laid back. Maybe it's a cultural thing. I have no idea, but yeah, I don't know. You're just kind of always given that impression to me. But yeah, it's a good point. You never really know what's going on in people's heads. And I always remember I was actually talking to, this was back in college. I still remember this. It was like during finals week or something. Everybody was studying really hard, and I was just talking with this Asian dude, and I don't remember how it got here, but it was basically saying that he had horrible social anxiety and like all of these kinds of like mental problems to do with stress and anxiety and stuff. But he was like the most calm person I had ever seen in my life. He was like perfectly monotone, and like I don't know, it was just so weird because like the way he looked was totally different than what was going on inside his head. So really interesting stuff. And actually, to go back to answering your question, by the way, my Myers-Briggs is INTJ, which is why I'm like, hey, what's your process for networking? Because for me, I actually need a process for such things. But yeah.
Okay.
So actually, yeah, that's a good question. Like, I don't know if you had an impression of me, but what would you have? Does that surprise you at all, or is that consistent with your impression of me?
We haven't spent a lot of time together. I mean, we hung out in Thailand a few times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we've caught up a few times on Skype like this. What's my impression? You seem like a hustler. I mean, like a lot of you seem like. You remind me of me, like, you're doing like different things and going that way. But like, I went to Bad Lads, and then you went to Bad Lads a year or two later, and I think it was the same, a year later or something. And so, yeah, I guess I probably, remind me of me, like you're sort of in that, just working your way up the food chain, basically. Exactly what I'm doing and what a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, good stuff.
Like I don't think too much about like the whole. I don't put too much faith in like the personality typing stuff. It's interesting to talk about. But yeah, otherwise, I'm not sure. Yeah, you seem like a confident guy. You've got your stuff together.
Thanks. Well, the whole not putting stock in personality types—that's such an ENTP thing to say. Oh my god, it's so very typical of an ENTP. Yeah. I mean, I like it. I think it's interesting. And actually, what I found is that I can pick girlfriends based off of Myers-Briggs pretty efficiently. So it's useful in that respect. But
okay, I need to try that.
Yeah. Well, you just got to figure out which types you like, and then it's relatively consistent in my experience. But one other final question to sort of wrap things up. I know you got breakfast scheduled, but I know you run an online community, and I'm curious about basically what was that little shiny object that got you worked up and excited about starting an online community, and then how did you actually go about initially creating that?
It was James Schramko, actually. Who got me, excited about it. It was his prodding, and like we did a podcast here. You can see it. You can look it up. It's called James Schramko Tears Apart the McMethod. And we go through it. We just talked about like that was his thing. Create a forum, create a community, put all your products in there, and then charge for monthly access to it. So that's sort of what I did. And how did I do it? I mean, I just sort of I don't know, figured out I got some membership software. I already had some products that I was selling, so it was just a matter of putting them inside the forum. then charging for access.
Nice. And so so you mentioned like an emphasis on recurring revenue. That would obviously, be a clear choice for how to scale that up and maybe increase the price or something like that and make that really large. Then you've got the monthly recurring revenue. So I'm curious, what's deterred you from making that choice in terms of going that route to secure that monthly revenue?
Just because forums are harder. Like forums, the churn rate. I mean, like a membership community where it's based on a product, the churn rate I think is quite high. It's hard to sell. It's not a no-brainer offer. I'm saying like sign up here and I'll give you all this training so you can spend hours of your time going and doing your funnel. It's not a no-brainer offer. So I found it quite hard to grow it as a community. Just how I've done some paid traffic before in the past, and that's worked okay. Maybe that's one of the things where I jumped off from too quick from that opportunity, jumping to another opportunity too quick when it got hard. But yeah, I just see more potential with doing like high price services because you can charge a lot more. You can get up a lot faster. You can increase that revenue a lot faster. Like I can go sign someone up for say $2,000 a month. That's $2,000 a month. That's 30 or 40 people in the forum, which is quite hard to do. And the person paying $2,000 a month, as long as I make the money, they're going to keep paying $2,000 a month. That's why I decided to get more in that direction.
Yeah, for sure. So, final question. So, what are some resources that books you've read? You mentioned some marketing programs that you've gone through. Anything that has been really profound and sort of pivotal to your success? Because it sounds like you've read a book recently that had the phrase "no-brainer offer" or something. But anything that's really turned it around for you or helped you take it to the next level that you've learned from?
Not so much with books. Like I read a lot of books anyway. But actually, that no-brainer offer, that's just something that occurred to me a few months ago. Like that was the key. I haven't actually read a book about that at all recently.
Well, maybe you should write one.
Maybe I should write one, yeah. I honestly think one of the best things you can do is hire a good coach. The last year is finding people who've done what I want to do and who can help me get there. Like that's the fastest way to do it. Find someone who's already done it and just go pay them to coach you or mentor you, whatever you want to call it, however you want to structure it, pay them to do it. And get referrals. I wouldn't go Googling to find a business coach. I would absolutely get referrals to find it and make the investment. It can be expensive, but it's 100% worth it, I've found.
Good advice. So thanks so much for joining me for this interview. I really appreciate you taking the time. I think we've gone over a lot of really high value stuff and some, even some advanced email marketing strategies, talking about high-end clients and how to pitch them, all kinds of good stuff. So if people want to check out everything you do, is themcmethod.com, is that the best place to reach out to you? Correct, yeah. Cool, guys. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this interview. And please, again, go to his website and opt in everywhere you can and check out his funnel at the very least. It's really high quality. And he also puts out really fantastic products as well. So thanks again, John. Thanks for having me, Graham. Hey, entrepreneurs and experts, I just wanted to thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope you learned at least one new big idea that helps you evolve your skills and gets you closer to monetizing your expertise and creating that successful knowledge business. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on iTunes and Stitcher, and check out myepodcast.com for all episodes as well as the tips and tricks mentioned in this episode. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.